A nurse from the United Kingdom has been sentenced to life in prison for murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 6 other babies, at least, that were in her care at the hospital she was working at in Chester in the United Kingdom. I'm Kevin Kneupper. I'm an attorney at Kneupper & Covey, and I want to walk you through this case of Lucy Letby, who's this woman up here. Now, for Americans who may not be good at geography, this is the United Kingdom. That's London, which you've probably all heard of. Right here is Chester. So it's a town up here, which is by Liverpool. Some Americans probably have heard of that because that's where the Beatles originally come from. So she was up here working in a hospital, and back in 2015, all of this started. Here's a photo of her being arrested back in 2018. This has been kicking around in the court system for a while, as you can tell, now about 5 years. But in 2015 is when these murders were happening. And they started basically where there was a series of mysterious incidents at the hospital that she was working at where babies kept dying under strange circumstances. And all of them happened to have her as one of the nurses who was taking care of them. Now, she wasn't killing them all in the same way. She was having different methods that she kind of seemed like she was experimenting with different ways to do this. But they started seeing strange symptoms among the babies that either died or came close to dying. Extreme vomiting, weird air bubbles in the baby's bloodstreams or in different parts of their bodies, extreme bleeding, strange like blue-colored mottling on the skin of some of the babies. And this kept happening basically for about a year. And one of the really, really concerning things about this case is how the hospital reacted. Because a lot of people were reporting this. One of the parents said that they saw her attacking their baby. The staff were getting suspicious of this. So there were various staff members and doctors who were saying, hey, there's something up with this. We think that she might be responsible for this. She was making kind of strange text messages to other staff members at the hospital. But they basically waited about a year. And then in response to this stuff, they moved her from kind of the night shift to the day shift, maybe about a year after this was happening. But then even for another 2 months after they'd moved her to the day shift, they just keep having cases, often twins and triplets, that she was kind of going after that kept having strange symptoms, extreme bleeding. And finally, they found some that had gas bubbles in them that she actually injected into the babies, injected air. And it ultimately was finally enough for the hospital to take her off where she was no longer allowed to be around children. And suddenly, the deaths all stopped. Now, what prosecutors said is that there were various different ways that she was doing this. Sometimes she was physically attacking the babies. Sometimes she was injecting air into them, either into kind of their digestive system or into their bloodstream, which could cause like air bubbles that are extremely dangerous for the babies. Sometimes she was injecting insulin into them, and then that would cause spikes and then could either harm them, cause brain damage, or kill them. And there actually are some of these babies who were alive and survived her attempts at this, but were left with very serious injuries and really are kind of damaged for life from what she did to them. Why was she doing this stuff? Well, there are a few theories and sometimes it's hard to discern someone's motive out of all this. But one is the I'm completely crazy motive, or like a Munchausen's. If you don't know what Munchausen's is, it's a psychological syndrome where people injure others or sometimes injure themselves for attention. And that can happen with mothers sometimes who will basically cause their children to get ill so that they can go in and get people to pay attention to them. There are people theorizing that that's part of what she was doing. This is right here kind of up above, a quote from one of the notes that she had sort of written to herself. Let me show you the note real quick so you can see just sort of the character of what it looked like. And, you know, the written text doesn't really convey just sort of how crazy person this looks. This is just a Post-it note that she's writing all this stuff on, circling hate, I am evil, I did this. Let's look at some more legible version of this text again. You can see right here, this is sort of just saying like she's evil. One of the things she says here that people focus on, she says, I'll never have children or marry. I'll never know what it's like to have a family, no hope. And there's some evidence that she had kind of a thyroid condition and may have been unable to have children herself, which may have been driving her sort of to go after other people out of jealousy or vengeance or things like that. You can see that, you know, she's even talking about, she starts talking about this police investigation. It says at one point I haven't done anything wrong, but then all these other sort of crazy, I did this, why me? She says she did it on purpose because I'm not good enough for them. I'm a horrible person. I don't deserve mom and dad. And so that is very strange stuff to be writing. And there could be something like Munchausen's where she's getting attention. This is another note in her diary. And again, it just sort of is scribbly and odd. And when you're looking at sort of the content of what she's saying along with just sort of how all this looks that she's doing it, it does suggest some sort of psychological issue here. This is another theory that's being sort of tossed around, and that the prosecutors thought might be part of this. Is and you can see this is from the Daily Mail, which is a newspaper. It's an article, and it says that she basically, one of the doctors she was kind of infatuated with, and was sending, going on walks with him, having meals with him. He was married, and what exactly was going on? They've kept him anonymous because it doesn't appear that he had any knowledge of what she was doing. But she was kind of in this, not real relationship, but basically very infatuated with him and into him. And the prosecution in the United Kingdom was suggesting that she basically did these attacks because she knew that when there was an emergency, that this doctor she was infatuated with would have to come in and be the one to help her. And she was texting him about this stuff, actually. And you can see the Daily Mail says she actually kind of was calling him sweetie in the messages. And then when she basically tried to run away from the court whenever he came in and testified testified against her because she thought she was being betrayed by this guy. Just kind of, I don't know how you would think that, but this is obviously a very strange mind at a minimum for this person. You can see these are the text messages from the Daily Mail that they're quoting. And she's texting the doctor after some of these deaths are happening and basically getting sympathy from this guy saying, oh, we've lost these babies. And the doctor's trying to sort of hype her up and saying, oh, are you okay? Have a cry. You'll feel better. He says, you're welcome to take my car home if you're too tired to walk. So it does look like they had some kind of relationship going here, or friendship anyway. And then he's sort of reassuring her, saying, if anyone knows how hard you've worked the last 3 days, it's me. If anybody says anything to you about not being good enough or performing adequately, I want you to promise me that you'll give my details to provide a statement. So that's the potential motives. But one of the really kind of disgusting things about this is how the hospital reacted to all this, because this kept going on and they kept being told it was her. And what did they do when when they started investigating? They made doctors apologize to her for having reported her and accused her of doing this. Literally did that. So this is The Guardian, another newspaper in the United Kingdom, and they're saying that basically these doctors were forced to do this. Let's look at some more details of how the management of this hospital reacted to having all these babies have this happen to them in their hospital. So you can see here, there were senior doctors that were warning for months and months that, hey, she's the only staff member present during this, that this is a problem. And that obviously is a problem. But so they're now looking at the management. The executives did this, it says down here, I'm covering it up. They did a formal review of what was going on, and they started doing this basically in the middle of it. But when they were doing the review, they were more concerned about what would happen to their hospital's reputation. So one of the pediatricians at this hospital say that basically the hospital executives told them, don't contact the police. That'll damage the hospital's reputation. It'll turn us into a crime scene. Well, it already was a crime scene, so I don't know why these guys were thinking, oh, it's okay to just try to hide this or to keep her on for so long working on this. And again, you can see that this guy, Tony Chambers, was one of their executives, instructed the senior doctors to write a letter of apology to her after there was an external review of this, even though that review said, hey, we need to investigate this further. What's crazy is in 2017, so this is like after she'd been taken off, after the deaths had all suddenly stopped in 2016 when they took her off entirely, now this Chambers guy is going, he's ordering the apology, but also saying she's going to return to work on the unit imminently. And that doesn't actually happen because a police investigation starts, but that is a totally crazy way to react to any of this, and just absolutely absurd and unconscionable. So now she's in prison for life, but there's a lot of questions about how they call it the NHS, which is the United Kingdom's sort of national health system. That's their they have a government agency that runs the healthcare. How did they handle this, and what are they going to do to fix stuff like this to make sure nothing like this ever happens again? Because this is one that should have been stopped a long time earlier than it was. If you want to hear more videos about lawsuits or criminal cases or the legal system, hit follow.